Brad Sauls is here from the South Carolina Department of Archives and History, and thank you so much.
My name is Brad Sauls. I'm with the South Carolina Department of Archives and History. First, a little bit about who we are. We are a state agency that deals primarily, we are a repository for state government records. We make records accessible for the public, primarily for historical research and genealogy. Um, and the part of the division of the Department of Archives and History that I work with is the State Historic Preservation Office. Each state has one, and sometimes in different agencies, but in South Carolina, our State Historic Preservation Office is part of the State Department of Archives and History. Our functions in the State Historic Preservation Office is that our primary program we work with is the National Register of Historic Places. That is a federal program through our friends at the National Park Service, and we manage the state level of functions and responsibilities for that program. We also manage a statewide survey and inventory to record and evaluate historic properties. And we also manage a program for review and compliance of federal undertakings that might affect those properties listed in the National Register. And then finally, what you're most interested in is our grant programs, and we also have tax incentive programs as well. But I'll talk with you today about our two grant programs we have. One is federal pass-through funding, and the other is state allocated funding. All right, our federal historic preservation grant program, that's an annual application. Later this fall, probably in the next month or so, I'll post information to update on our website for the 2025 cycle of federal historic preservation grants. The eligible applicants are local governments and nonprofit organizations. Nonprofit is probably the biggest umbrella. That can include churches, schools, basically any nonprofit organization as a 501c3. Those are our primary applicants and recipients for these grants. We are also required to award a certain percentage of our overall funding that we get from the National Park Service for grants that are in our certified local government communities. And those are these communities. If you don't see your community's name on this list, fear not, there is another program that can be more applicable to you. And we use our federal funds specifically in these communities to do bricks and mortar projects. For other planning projects or other non bricks and mortar projects, we will accept applications for those statewide. For our federal grant program, we do require a 50% match. You need to be prepared to pay for 100% of your project costs up front, and we reimburse you for 50% up to the grant amount. Maximum grant amounts are typically $35,000, and funding is not retroactive for works already completed, so it has to be for work that can be accomplished after we receive your application and award it and enter a funding agreement with you and approve various aspects of your project. And then we can fund those activities after that point. We review and approve all grant funded activities, and only properly documented costs are reimbursed, and there is competitive procurement of professional services required. Most of the projects that we fund typically involve the recipient hiring some sort of professional assistance, whether it's an architect or engineer or other historic preservation consultant. So getting those services needs to be done on a competitive basis. The selection criteria for our federal grant program, we want to fund projects that are well planned and have a sound methodology and use qualified personnel. We're looking for projects that involve resources that are significant for architecture or association with other significant people or events in history. We're also looking to fund projects that involve threatened resources. Hopefully the project we fund maybe can help alleviate some threat to the resource. We also want to fund projects that are going to have a demonstrable public benefit and that are part of a larger planning process, not that that is something that's not happening in a vacuum, but is maybe part of some larger plan, whether it's the local government's comprehensive plan or a larger plan in the nonprofit that's applying for funding. This is one step in a series of planned steps to accomplish an overall preservation goal. Project types that we fund generally, and most importantly, that we identify and record historic properties. We've done projects to award National Register nominations for people to hire consultants to prepare National Register nominations for large districts or large complexes, or to do surveys to identify historic properties in a given area. We've just completed projects, as examples, in Sullivan's Island and in the Little River area of Horry County to record and identify and evaluate properties. And then we've just finished a project for downtown Gray Court in Lawrence County to actually hire a consultant, prepare a nomination to do the downtown district to be listed in the National Register. and we're just getting started soon with a project in Camden to do an update of their National Register nomination, particularly these nominations like Camden's that were done early in the history of the program in the late 1960s, early 70s. There's frequently room to expand and improve on those nominations so we can fund those types of projects where there's a need. We also will fund planning for individual historic properties. Sometimes in projects you want to jump right to the preservation and the bricks and mortar side of things, but all good preservation projects need sound planning with appropriate trained personnel. So we will fund projects that can fund things such as conditions assessments, all the way up to bid ready plans and specs for actual stabilization and weatherization repairs that need to be done. So to be sure that your project is going to be well planned and well thought out for the property, we can help you pay for that important planning step that's needed on the front end. And again, for these properties that are in our certified local government communities, we will fund bricks and mortar type projects, stabilization projects to weatherproof a building, to stop deterioration. They have to be buildings that are listed in the National Register, and we do need to have bid ready plans and specs for the application. So there's potential you could get a grant to fund the planning part and then come back in a subsequent cycle to do some funding for the actual repairs later. This photo is an example of a project in Bluffton, the Garvin House, and this is the sort of end result of doing that stabilization. We are still required to have a covenant agreement be placed on properties where we're actually helping pay for stabilization. Finally, our state historic preservation program. This is still relatively new for us. We've just in the process of getting applications on our third cycle. The next cycle will be sometime in the summer of 2025. Local governments and nonprofit organizations, again, are the targeted applicants. And this year, for our most recent cycle, we divided up and we will fund those planning grant projects. So you can apply for up to $50,000 to help pay for the planning. That has zero match requirement. And then that can lead to a further subsequent application up to $200,000 that requires a 20% match to actually pay for the stabilization repairs. And our priorities are to target properties in rural areas and that are associated with underrepresented history in the National Register. This is an example of a recently completed state grant stabilization project in Orangeburg County, the Bull Swamp School, which is an African-American school from the early 20th century, and gotten a good finished project there to stop deterioration and to help it's owned by a church, and they want to use it for programming and activities within their church and the community. So this project is going to help them on their larger goal of putting this building back into functional public use again. And that's all I've got. Thank you.